I remember pulling into my parents' driveway that evening. I had sunscreen on, my bag was packed, and I was ready for what was supposed to be a great family trip. I was in a good mood, thinking about the time we were going to spend together in Hawaii. It had been a long time since we all went somewhere as a family. As I walked up to the house, I was expecting the usual hustle and bustle of pre-travel chaos. My mom opened the door, and there was this moment when I felt something was off. She just stood there and told me I wasn't on the guest list. I was taken aback, trying to process what she meant. It felt surreal, like a bad dream. I looked inside, and everything was ready for the trip. Bags lined up, travel essentials neatly arranged. My sister and her husband were relaxed on the couch, completely unfazed by my presence. It hit me then, the realization that they had planned this without me. My mom explained that Sarah had been going through a tough time and needed this trip to be about her and Dan. No drama, no stress, just peace. Apparently, I was the source of tension they wanted to avoid. My dad didn't even turn around from whatever he was pretending to do in the kitchen. It was like I was invisible. No one tried to explain or make it better. So I left. I sat in my car for a while, just trying to wrap my head around it all. I wasn't angry at first, just humiliated. The signs had been there, but I chose not to see them. Every conversation about the trip had been vague, and now it made sense. They had planned it all without including me, and I was blind to it until it was right in front of me. Later that night, I got a Venmo request from my mom for $500, my share of the flights and villa, she said. I couldn't help but laugh at the irony. It was almost like a punchline to a bad joke. I sent back $1 with a note saying, "You'll have a surprise." I wasn't going to sit back and let them have their perfect vacation without me. I found the flight number, checked for available seats, and booked one for myself. Same flight, same gate. It felt like the only way to reclaim a part of what was taken from me. If they wanted peace, they could have it, but I wasn't going to stay home, moping around while they were out there enjoying themselves. I was determined to be a part of this trip, whether they liked it or not. In my mind, I kept thinking about how things had changed between us, how I had become the outsider in my own family. It was painful to realize that they saw me as a disruptor in their quest for serenity. I wasn't sure what I had done to deserve being excluded, but I wasn't going to let it keep me from going. I was torn between wanting to be with them and feeling like I needed to prove a point. It was a mix of emotions that I couldn't quite sort out, but I knew I had to be there, if only to show them that I wasn't going to be left out so easily. The days leading up to the flight were a mess. I couldn't find my flip-flops, which I was sure I had left in the hallway closet. My sunscreen exploded in my bag, leaving a sticky mess everywhere. The zipper on my usual duffel bag broke at the last minute, and I had to scramble to find a replacement. The charger I packed was for an old phone, and I realized I hadn't refilled my prescription, which meant I had to make a detour on the way to the airport. It felt like everything that could go wrong did, but I kept telling myself it would all be worth it once I got there. This was supposed to be our first real family trip in a long time, and I wanted to believe that being there would somehow make things better, even if I wasn't officially invited. I tried to focus on the idea of being in Hawaii, the sun, the beach, the chance to relax and maybe mend some of the tension between us. It was a small hope, but it was enough to keep me going through all the chaos. When I got to the airport, I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. I was going to see them, but I wasn't sure how they would react. I kept thinking about what I would say, how I would explain my presence without causing a scene. I wanted to be calm and composed, to show them that I was there for the right reasons. But deep down, I was still hurt and angry, and I wasn't sure if I could hide it. As I sat waiting for the flight, I kept replaying the conversation with my mom in my head, trying to make sense of it all. It was hard to shake off the feeling of betrayal, knowing that they had intentionally left me out. But I was determined to be there, to not let them take away the chance to be a part of something that should have been for all of us. I wanted to believe that somehow this trip could still be salvaged, that we could find a way to come together despite everything. It was a fragile hope, but it was all I had. I remember when I first came up with the plan. It wasn't about revenge. I just wanted a little peace on my own terms. I'd been feeling like an outsider for too long, like I was always on the edge of their perfect family moments. They had this ability to move through life like everything was a well-rehearsed routine, and I was just the extra who never got her lines. So I did something about it. I booked myself a place, not just any place, but a private cabana in a luxury villa with a full ocean view. It was everything I needed, a separate entrance, a space that was only mine for 5 days. I booked it under their last name, added a little note to the reservation about how the Miller family prefers early check-in, and a bottle of champagne. I wasn't seeking to hurt them. I just wanted to carve out a slice of tranquility with the best view possible. I arrived at the airport early. I didn't want to chance anything going wrong, not when everything seemed to be aligning so perfectly. I parked in long-term parking, blending in like I was just another member of a family heading out for a week in paradise. I kept my hoodie up and my headphones on, more as a shield than a necessity. We were on the same flight, but I wasn't ready for them to know that just yet. Boarding began, and I saw them near the gate. My dad was clutching his travel folder like a relic from the past, even though everything's digital now. Sarah had this designer neck pillow looped through her suitcase handle, laughing with Dan over something on her phone. My mom was tapping her foot, checking her watch like she was counting down to some invisible deadline. I waited until the final boarding call, slipped by them in group 4 while they were busy arguing with a gate agent about a window seat. I walked right past them. Nobody noticed. It was strangely liberating. The plane was packed, and I took a middle seat, head down, sleeping through most of the flight. I woke up somewhere over the Pacific as the flight attendants were handing out drinks. They were a few rows ahead, already in vacation mode, talking and laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. When we landed, I let them go first. They rushed off, eager to dive into their curated family getaway, minus the problem child. I lingered, taking my time, and when I finally stepped into the arrivals area, there it was, my driver holding a sign that said, Miller family. He didn't question it, just grabbed my bag and led me to a black SUV with cold towels and a basket of fresh fruit in the back. I didn't even have to touch my luggage. The resort was about 20 minutes up the coast, a private estate, technically separate from the main hotels. My cabana had its own infinity pool, a hammock strung between 2 palm trees, and a deck that opened right onto the sand. When I checked in, the staff greeted me with, "Aloha, Miss Miller. We've got everything set up for you and your guests." I nodded, playing along. They'll be joining later. That was enough. Meanwhile, I knew where they were staying. It was a decent resort, sure, but cramped. One shared villa for the 4 of them, limited beach access, family-friendly, noisy, very public. That night, I took a walk near their side of the island just to see it. I stayed out of sight, but close enough to watch them shuffle onto the beach, clearly irritated about something. My guess was they had tried to check in under their last name and got told someone else had already taken the prime room. They didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning. By morning, they'd be making calls, trying to figure out what had happened. And I'd be 3 margaritas deep on a lounger, reading a book I didn't even plan to finish. I wasn't trying to ruin their trip. I was just letting them feel what it's like to be left out. When the first morning rolled around, it felt like a scene from a travel brochure. The ocean was a symphony of calmness. The breeze seemed choreographed just for that Tuesday. I had no messages, no calls, no noise, just a plate of tropical fruit I couldn't name, and the sound of waves hitting the shore. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was orbiting around someone else's life. By 9 a.m., the messages started coming in. I remember waking up that morning, feeling the gentle rustle of the ocean breeze through the open windows. It was supposed to be a day of relaxation, a rare escape from the usual chaos. But my phone kept buzzing, pulling me back to reality. The first message was from my mom, asking if I had done something with their reservation. I ignored it, knowing exactly what she was referring to. Then Sarah, my sister, sent a message saying we needed to talk. Her words hinted at some issue with the villa, but I couldn't muster the energy to care. I didn't even listen to the voice message she sent afterward. I knew what had happened. They had tried to check in, only to find out that the beachfront cabana had already been claimed under the name Miller. My name. There was no second booking, and the staff had flagged the reservation for VIP check-in hours earlier. My family was bumped to a downgraded room, far from the beach, with no view or extras. It was all that was left. They were furious, of course. By noon, I finally picked up one of my dad's calls. He asked if I had booked something in their name. I admitted that I had. He wanted to know why, and I told him simply that I thought they'd be fine alone. He hung up, leaving me to my solitude. I spent the rest of the day by the pool, indulging in extravagant dishes just because they were available. At breakfast, I met two women, Cassie and Joy, who were on a spontaneous trip after their bachelorette party got canceled. We hit it off immediately, sharing easy conversations and laughter. They joined me for drinks and stayed late. I didn't mind their company. The next day was a repeat of the first, only better. I went snorkeling while my family tried in vain to negotiate with hotel managers for an upgrade or a change of location. I knew they wouldn't succeed. Every decent place was booked solid weeks in advance. They were stuck. I crossed paths with them once on the beach. Sarah saw me, did a double take. She was sunburned and in sandals, looking frazzled. I, on the other hand, was fresh from a massage, wearing shades and a linen shirt. We didn't exchange words. That evening, Cassie and Joy returned. We watched the sunset together, then stretched out on the deck, listening to music and the sound of the ocean. I didn't feel triumphant. It was more a sense of quiet release, like years of tension had dissolved in the sea air. I knew there would be consequences back home, but for now, my family were the outsiders. I was exactly where I needed to be. On the fourth morning, there was a knock at my cabana door. I assumed it was another resort service, but instead, a staff member handed me an envelope. It wasn't from the front desk, they said, but delivered by a guest. The envelope bore no name, just a room number scribbled in the corner. Inside, I found a note on resort stationery, written in Sarah's handwriting. It was just 3 sentences long. "This was beyond petty. We're embarrassed for you. You've ruined the trip." No greeting, no signature, nothing but that. I carefully folded the note and placed it under my drink on the patio table. It didn't even make me angry. It was more surreal than anything else. As if they truly believed I would just disappear without notice. And now that I hadn't, I was somehow the villain for not going quietly. I spent the afternoon in town with Cassie and Joy. They'd discovered a boat tour run by a retired marine biologist, offering reef dives to small groups. It ended up being just the 3 of us. We took turns diving, swam with sea turtles, and sipped from real coconuts. At one point, Cassie leaned back and mused whether this was how life was supposed to feel. I didn't respond, but I understood her sentiment. Near the end of the tour, Joy snapped a photo of us laughing, me in the middle, shirtless, drink in hand, with the ocean as our backdrop. She posted it on Instagram. I didn't think much of it at the time. It was just another vacation snapshot. But the image captured more than just a moment. It was a testament to the freedom I had found, however fleeting it might be. When I look back on it now, it feels almost surreal, like watching someone else's life unravel on screen. That moment when everything came to a head, and I knew there was no turning back. We had just returned to the cabana, a place that was supposed to be our escape, our little paradise away from the usual chaos. But there it was, my phone buzzing insistently, 5 missed calls from my dad, and a long, scathing message that cut deeper than I could have imagined. He told me to delete the photo, accused me of trying to humiliate the family deliberately. It wasn't the first time I'd been accused of stepping out of line, but this felt different. It felt final. Then there was Sarah, who had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. She questioned my motives, made it seem like everything I did was just an act, a pathetic attempt to get attention. But it was my mom's message that really hit me. She said they had supported me for years, that they never made me feel different even though I was. And in those words, I saw the truth. They had spent years trying to mold me into someone I wasn't, ignoring the parts of me that didn't fit their picture of a perfect family. I was supposed to be the backdrop to Sarah's spotlight. That realization sat heavy in my chest all afternoon, a weight I couldn't shake off. Supported me, they said, but it felt more like they were trying to erase me, make me smaller, more manageable. That evening, Cassie and Joy decided to head into town to check out a live music bar, but I couldn't bring myself to join them. I needed space, needed to think. So I wandered down to the beach, the sand cool under my feet as the sun dipped below the horizon. As I reached the edge of the resort, I spotted Dan sitting alone on a low stone wall, a beer in hand, looking out at the ocean. He acknowledged me with a lazy raise of his bottle, and I hesitated before joining him, sitting a few feet away. He was quiet at first, then told me what I already knew. Things were unraveling. My mom cried, Sarah was slamming doors, and I wasn't quite sure how to feel about it all. Dan mentioned that no one expected me to show up, not like this. They thought I would just stay home, sulking in the corner. It stung a little, knowing that even my presence was an unwelcome surprise. I asked him, more curious than anything, if Sarah had asked them to leave me out. He didn't answer right away, took a sip of his beer, then admitted it was her idea. They went along with it because it was easier than dealing with another fight. It was like a punch to the gut, but at the same time I wasn't surprised. I'd seen the signs, felt the exclusion long before this trip. It was just more blatant now, more undeniable. We sat in silence for a while, the sound of the waves a comforting backdrop to my racing thoughts. When I finally stood up to leave, Dan told me they'd keep coming after me when we got back. I nodded, already resigned to what was coming. Back at the cabana, Cassie and Joy were half asleep on the daybed, music playing softly from someone's phone. I grabbed a water bottle, joined them outside, and let myself relax for the first time in days. Joy opened one eye when I sat down, then drifted off again. I closed my eyes too, letting the calm wash over me. For the first time, I wasn't trying to fit in, to earn a place at their table. It was liberating, and I could feel the tension slowly leaving my body. The flight home was uneventful, but there was a strange sense of closure to it all. We ended up on the same plane by coincidence, but it felt like the universe was trying to make a point. I boarded first, found a seat near the back, and put on my noise-canceling headphones. I watched as they came in, my parents, Sarah and Dan, all tired and tan, but not speaking to each other. They didn't notice me, or maybe they did and just didn't want to cause a scene. I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no victory, just a numb acceptance of how things were. As the plane took off, I watched the world grow smaller through the window, the seatbelt light flickering above me. When we landed, I ignored their glances in the baggage claim area, walked straight to the parking garage without looking back. They didn't stop me, and I think we all knew there was nothing left to say. A couple of days later, the retaliation began. My mom sent a text first saying they were pausing communication because emotions were still high. She told me I had crossed a line. Then my dad chimed in, hoping I would reflect on my choices and the damage I had caused. But the real blow came in the form of a payment request through Venmo, $1,500 for flights and the villa. It was their way of reminding me of my place, of the price of defiance, everything that led to this point. It feels almost surreal to unpack all of it now, to lay it bare in front of you. But here I am, ready to speak my truth. The trip to Hawaii was supposed to be a turning point, a breath of fresh air. I thought it could be a chance to reconnect with my family, to find some common ground away from the usual routine. But when I found out they had planned the trip without including me, it felt like a stab in the back. I'd always known there was some tension, some underlying issues, but this felt different. It was a deliberate exclusion, a clear message that I wasn't part of the inner circle. And what made it worse was that they didn't even try to hide it. There were all these photos on social media, smiling faces and happy moments, all without me. I pretended it didn't bother me, even though it did. I told myself that I was better off without the drama, that I didn't need their validation. But deep down, it hurt. It was a rejection, plain and simple. And then Sarah's messages started coming in, one after another. Each one was like a little jab, a reminder that I wasn't welcome. She didn't see it that way, of course. In her mind, I was the one causing trouble, the one making a big deal out of nothing. But she didn't understand what it felt like to be left out, to be the one on the outside looking in. I didn't respond because I didn't want to give her the satisfaction. I didn't want to play her game. But every new message was like a weight on my chest, a reminder that no matter what I did, I was always going to be the odd one out. I tried to focus on other things, to find joy in the little moments. At work, I kept to myself, not wanting to invite questions or pity. When my coworkers asked about the trip, I gave them the bare minimum, not wanting to delve into the messy reality. Cassie and Joy were a brief distraction, a reminder that there were people out there who valued my company. But even that was fleeting. We drifted apart naturally, as people often do. It wasn't a loss, just a quiet acknowledgement that our paths had crossed at the right moment and then diverged. But the silence from my family was different. It wasn't peaceful or comforting. It was heavy, a constant reminder of the fracture that had formed between us. When my dad's email arrived, I didn't even bother to read it. I knew what it would say. More of the same, more attempts to shift the blame onto me. I was done with that game, done with trying to defend myself to people who didn't want to understand. So I archived it, along with all the other reminders of what once was. I deleted the family group chat, removed all the shared events from my calendar. It was a clean break, a way to reclaim some control over my life. But the void it left was undeniable. As the months passed, the distance only grew. There were no calls, no visits, no attempts to bridge the gap. It was as if I had been erased from the family narrative, a ghost lingering on the outskirts. The last time I heard my parents' voices was that day at the airport, their laughter echoing in my ears as I stood alone. And Sarah's messages kept coming, relentless in their persistence. She painted me as the villain, the one who had abandoned them without cause, but she never once stopped to consider her own actions, never questioned the decision to leave me out in the first place. To her, I was the problem, the one who couldn't just accept things as they were, but I couldn't, not anymore. I muted her, then blocked her, not out of spite, but out of necessity. I needed space to breathe, to find my own path without the constant noise of their disapproval. And then there was Dan, a brief encounter at a gas station that left me feeling hollow. We made eye contact, a silent acknowledgement of what once was, then went our separate ways. It was a moment that encapsulated everything, the unspoken divide that had formed between me and the people who were supposed to be my family. When my mom's letter arrived, I wasn't surprised. It was full of the same sentiments, the same refusal to see things from my perspective. She wrote of forgiveness, but only if I admitted my part in the mess. But how could I admit to something I didn't believe in? I folded the letter, tucked it away, and moved on. It was the last outreach, the final attempt to reel me back into their world. But by then I was done. I spent the holidays with friends, surrounded by laughter and warmth, without the weight of family expectations. It was liberating, a reminder that I could find my own happiness, even if it didn't look like what I had imagined. I thought about everything that had happened, the choices I'd made, and realized that I was okay. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. Sometimes I think about Hawaii, not about revenge or some petty satisfaction, but about that first morning alone when the ocean was calm and no one expected anything from me. That moment when I realized I didn't need other people to give me space anymore, I could take it for myself. It was never about punishment. It was about finding peace within myself. And peace, I've come to understand, doesn't beg to be understood. It just remains quiet and lets everything else around it keep screaming. That's the last I'll mention of them. We don't talk anymore, and I don't miss it. Almost a year has passed since I cut ties. At first it was hard, but eventually entire weeks would go by without me thinking about them. I stopped wondering if they'd reach out. I stopped checking for their names in my inbox or tensing up every time the phone buzzed. Life moved forward. I moved closer to the coast, picked up more freelance clients, and finally started sleeping through the night again. I wasn't trying to rebuild anything. I just built something entirely new. Quiet, normal, and mine. I met someone, Nick, at a gallery opening. We hit it off without trying too hard. He didn't pry into my past, and I didn't feel the need to unload it onto him. For the first time in forever, I had space around me that felt like it was truly mine, not borrowed or shared. Then last Tuesday night, around 8:30, there was a knock on my door. It was unexpected. I hadn't ordered food, and no one ever visited without texting first. I assumed maybe a neighbor needed something or a delivery had ended up at the wrong unit. I opened the door, and there was Sarah. She looked rough, not in a dramatic, falling apart way, but in a way that suggested she hadn't been winning for a while now. Her hair was pulled back, badly dyed darker, and she had no makeup on. She wore a windbreaker I swear I'd seen her wear back in college, when things still made sense between us. We stood there in silence for a moment. Then she looked at me and said, "Mom's in the hospital." My mouth opened before my brain caught up. "What happened?" "Heart attack," she said. "Mild. They said she'll recover, but she asked for you." I just stood there, frozen. I couldn't move or breathe for a second. I couldn't even picture my mom in a hospital bed. Not because she seemed invincible, but because I had finally filed all of them away into a part of my mind I didn't visit anymore. Sarah continued. "She said your name before mine. Not Dad's, yours." I didn't know whether to believe her. She handed me a folded piece of paper, just one line written on hotel stationery. "If I was wrong, I'm sorry. I love you either way. No signature, no over-explaining, not like her." I didn't ask if she meant it. I didn't ask why now. I just stared at the paper. Then Sarah said something that caught me off guard. "She's scared you won't come. Not because you're angry, but because she thinks maybe you've actually moved on." It was the most honest thing she'd said to me in years, maybe ever. And for a brief moment, I felt it, that crack in the wall I'd built around myself. Not a collapse, not forgiveness, just a flicker of something I didn't want to name. I asked how she got here. She said she took a rideshare. Her car was in the shop. The Sarah I knew wouldn't be caught dead without her car. I watched her turn and walk back down the driveway without waiting for a response. I closed the door, sat in the dark with the note still in my hand. Nick texted me an hour later, just a simple, "Want me to come over?" I stared at the screen. Then I replied, "Not tonight. It's been a weird day." I didn't go to the hospital, I didn't call anyone, but I didn't throw away the note either. It's still on the kitchen table, folded, waiting. And for now, that's all I'm ready for.